At the beginning of the story, we see the mining ship Borealis sailing in a vast void of space. The mission of this ship was to collect valuable minerals from an unknown planet far from Earth. Hundreds of astronauts and miners inside the ship were in deep sleep after hibernation to avoid the stress of the long journey. The entire ship was being operated by an advanced autopilot system. But fate had a different game. Suddenly, a swarm of huge meteors, or asteroids, pierced the chest of space and hit Borealis directly. In an instant, the ship's fuse tail exploded, and it lost its balance and was destroyed. When the ship's AI system realized that it was no longer possible to save the ship, it turned on emergency mode and launched all the passenger pods towards an unknown planet nearby. It is in this chaos that we first see Andy Rami race. Andy is not a high-ranking officer. He was an ordinary, lower-level engineer. When Andy's hum breaks in a violent jolt, he finds himself inside a small pod. Leonard, the AI, attached to his spacesuit, tells him to quickly take off his suit. Andy looks out through the next window and shivers. He sees that numerous pods with him are being burned to ashes by the friction of the air. Andy's path also enters the atmosphere of an unknown planet like a fireball and hits a mountain slope with great force. Andy loses consciousness from the impact. When Andy regains consciousness, he sees that he is alone. Leonard warns him that the pod is on fire and could explode at any time. But unfortunately, the next gate is jammed by the impact of the landing. Andy desperately tries to break the work, but the next work is very powerful. Being an ordinary engineer, Andy did not have any advanced tools. Finally, for the sake of his life, he repeatedly hits the glass with a fire extinguisher there. Just before the glass breaks, the pot rolls down the mountain. Although Andy manages to get out, a part of his suit gets stuck in the glass and his oxygen quickly runs out. At Leonard's urgent warning, Andy somehow closes the leak with his repair spray and saves his life. After getting out, Andy finds himself in a desolate gray desert. Leonard says that humans have no map or information about this planet. In the distance, he sees his main ship Borealis burning and decides to go there. On the way, he sees a destroyed pot. Although he runs in the hope of oxygen, he only sees a frozen body there. Its oxygen cylinder has already been shattered. When Andy is about to collapse due to extreme loneliness and fear of death, he sees a strange, bright light on the horizon in the distance. When Andy reaches the bright light, he sees an astronaut named Dwight alive. Dwight is trying to send a signal to Earth, or another station, with his own hands. Andy is relieved when the two meet, but Dwight tells him a terrible truth. He says that their company took a shortcut through the space route to save a few bucks, where the meteorite was most likely to hit, and hundreds of people have fallen victim to that greed. Dwight also says that it will take 8 months for a message to reach, and it can take about 2 years for a rescue team to arrive. Andy is shocked. How will they survive without food and water for so long? Dwight then tells him a cruel reality. He says that there are some supplies in the wreckage of the ship, and if the situation gets worse, they will have to survive by drinking their own urine, recycled water, and even eating corpses if necessary. Andy breaks down mentally after hearing this. Just then, one of the connections to the light is loose. Then Andy bends down to fix it. In a moment of carelessness, a mysterious creature pulls Dwight and disappears into the darkness. Andy stands up and cannot see Dwight anymore. He thinks Dwight has gone somewhere nearby. Andy sees that the message is ready, so he sends it without delay. Meanwhile, Leonard warns that the oxygen is almost gone. The only way to survive is to reach the wreckage of the ship. Andy picks up the flare song left by Dwight and starts his journey. On the way, he tries to communicate with the others on the radio repeatedly. When he gets tired and gives up and starts screaming, a girl answers from the other side. Her name is Naomi. Naomi says that she is stuck inside her pod and her feet are crushed under a heavy part. She asks Andy for help. Leonard stops Andy because her oxygen is very low, and going to Naomi's location means certain death. But when Naomi tells him that she has an extra oxygen tank, Andy takes the risk and moves towards her. The night is getting darker, and Andy starts to feel like someone is following him. Leonard's system doesn't have any advanced scanners, because the company used this old model of AI suit to cut costs. Naomi says Leonard is an old and useless system. As he progresses, Andy sees small holes under the ground, which finally end up at the mouth of a huge cave. The inside of the cave is covered with strange fibers like spider webs. Andy realizes that there is something here that is not of this world. When he starts to run away in fear, Naomi encourages him and tells him to go ahead. Suddenly, Naomi sees on her advanced scanner that several more team members' trackers are approaching the tracker signal of Andy's suit, but they are not answering the radio. Leonard says they are only within 100 meters, but Naomi gives a chilling information. She says that in fact, those team members are all dead. Their trackers are now stuck with those strange alien creatures. Andy panics and fires a flare from his flare band, illuminating the surroundings. In the flash of light, he sees a hideous, spider-like alien creature coming to attack him. Andy runs for his life and falls into a crevice in a mountain. When the creature attacks from above, he somehow slips from there and falls down. Although he is not seriously injured due to the ice below, his spacesuit gets stuck. When the oxygen starts to leak, he somehow stops the leak with his last repair spray. Naomi asks about his condition on the radio, and Andy tells her everything. At that moment, Dwight's screams come over the radio. Dwight screams that he is fighting the creatures, and that he is very close to Andy. Naomi pleads with Andy and Dwight to save Dwight, because Dwight had the oxygen he needed, although Andy's GPS system was broken. But Naomi guided him through the radio to Dwight's location. When Andy reached Dwight, the surrounding area was covered in fog. Dwight fired a flare gun from the darkness, revealing his location. Andy ran towards him, but he was not prepared for the sight. Suddenly, a monstrous creature pounced on Dwight and tore him apart in the blink of an eye. Andy shivered in fear and hid behind a nearby pod. Just as the creature was finishing Dwight off, another creature sensed Andy's hiding place and started moving towards him. Andy's heartbeat increased so much that he could hear his own breathing. When death was certain, Naomi showed her intelligence. She remotely turned on the light of a pod next to Andy so that the creature would run towards it. Andy took the opportunity to hide inside another pod. Naomi tried to turn on the lights of the other pods and accidentally turned on the lights of Andy's pod. In a moment, the creature returned. Inside the next one, a frozen corpse was looking at Andy, and outside, that hellish skeleton creature, Andy screamed in panic and told Naomi to turn off the lights, but the system jammed, and the lights would not turn off. Naomi was forced to turn on the lights of all the pods in the area at once. The creature started running around in confusion, and Andy took this opportunity to run away from there as fast as he could. After going a little further, Andy entered a strange, foggy area. He noticed that the creatures had stopped chasing him. Andy was fascinated by the sight of small, beautiful flying lights like fireflies all around. But this fascination did not last long. Suddenly, those fireflies turned red and started attacking Andy. Andy realized that nothing on this planet was safe. However, a deep question arose in his mind. Did the creatures really turn back because they were scared of the fireflies? Or was there a bigger danger? Andy's idea was right. Suddenly, the ground shook, and a giant, mouth-like creature emerged from under the ground and swallowed Andy. Andy was trapped inside the monster's stomach and lost the ability to move. Naomi was not getting any answers from the Opus. When Andy was about to lose consciousness, Leonard realized from his sensors that Andy was in pain. He gave Andy a strong electric shock to save him. The shock knocked Andy out of his mind. Andy staggered into a cave. But there was also a group of killer fireflies there. Andy somehow managed to escape their attack and came out of the fog. Leonard said that Andy had only 3% oxygen left. In this state, it was almost impossible to reach Naomi. Naomi also told him to go straight to the wreckage of the ship to save his life. But Andy was stubborn. He said, "I won't let you die alone," because he knows that the creatures have started attacking after all. Just as Andy's lungs were bursting due to lack of oxygen, he went to Naomi's side and crashed. Naomi quickly opened the next door and threw a new oxygen tank at Andy. After a long struggle with death, Andy seemed to regain new life by drawing in a lot of fresh oxygen. When he reached Naomi's side, Andy saw that her leg was very badly stuck. Surprisingly, when Andy checked Naomi's emergency kit, he saw that it had all the modern and special tools that the company had not given to Andy. Using those tools, Andy rescued Naomi. Naomi's leg was swollen and she could not walk properly, so Andy made a support for her leg with a rod. Naomi thanked Andy with grateful eyes, because if it weren't for Andy, he would have died right after today, but there was no time to relax. Suddenly, the creatures surrounded them from all sides. The two of them desperately ran towards the ruins of the main ship. When Naomi couldn't bear the pain anymore, she ordered her AI to inject painkillers directly into her legs. Although she could run fast under the effects of the drug, she stumbled just before reaching the ship. When the creatures were on their necks, Naomi threw light from her flare gun to distract them. Using this intelligence, they entered the ship. Inside the ship, they saw that the backup generator was on, and the lights were on. But this joy did not last long. They moved forward, seeing fresh bloodstains on the floor and signs of being dragged away. What was there was a hellish pit. Andy and Naomi hid in the darkness. They saw the creature spitting out Dwight's chewed bones and helmet. As Andy trembles with fear, something falls from his hand. The creature sees them. To save their lives, they enter an airlock chamber and lock the gate, but the danger increases. The outside button of the airlock remains outside. There is no way to open it from the inside. They are trapped in a death trap. As death knocks on the door, Andy tells Naomi about the secret trauma of his life. He tells her that his wife and son died in a car accident, and Andy himself was driving the car. Naomi comforts Andy, who feels guilty. The two say goodbye to each other, thinking it is the last moment of their lives. Just then, Andy catches sight of the bright fireflies stuck in his suit. He throws them at the creature. When the fireflies turn red and attack the creature, they take the opportunity to get out. During the fight, Andy squirts a repair spray into the creature's face, but the monster is unstoppable. Andy then comes up with a crazy plan. He sees some intact pods still hanging on the launching stand in the cargo area. He decides to launch one pod and drop it directly on the creature. Andy goes up and tells Naomi to turn off all the lights in the cargo bay so that the blind creature can't find Naomi. But there isn't enough power to start the pod. Leonard tells Andy to connect the battery in his suit to the pod, and it will start. But Andy has to sit inside the pod. This means that when the pod hits the creature, Andy will also be in danger of dying. Andy agrees to risk his life to save Naomi. Andy sits inside the pod and connects his own suit's battery to the next engine. As the suit's power starts to decrease, the next one roars for launch. On the other hand, Naomi risks her life by turning on all the lights in her suit so that the blind but ferocious creature will chase her. Andy could see from the next door that Naomi was rushing to bring the creature to the exact spot where the pod landed. At that moment, Andy's eyes flashed back to that cursed night of his life when an accident took his wife and son. For years, he had thought of himself as a murderer. Today, he would not let anyone die. Today, he would be a protector. When the right moment came, Andy launched the pod. Like a meteor, the pod crashed directly into the monstrous creature. The entire area shook with a huge explosion, and the creature was crushed to death instantly. Naomi was thrown away by the impact of the explosion, but she quickly caught herself and ran to Andy's pod. She opened the next door and saw Andy lying motionless. Naomi burst into tears. She thought that maybe Andy had sacrificed his life to save her. But to everyone's surprise, Andy slowly opened his eyes. He was seriously injured but alive. Naomi happily hugged him. At the end of the dark night, they were both alive. Slowly, the sun rose on the horizon of that mysterious planet. The terrifying appearance of the planet seemed somewhat calmer in the morning light. Andy told Naomi that he had sent a signal to Earth with the transmitter that Dwight had made. Although it would take many months for that message to reach and a rescue team to arrive, it would take a few years, but they now had the resources to survive. There was enough oxygen, water, and food inside the ship to easily last for several years. Andy and Naomi looked at each other and smiled. They knew that the fight had not been easy, and that many challenges would come, but they were no longer alone. They were now each other's companions. Thus, a devastating accident and a battle of loneliness ended with a new ray of hope. If you liked the story, please like and subscribe to stay by our side. Goodbye.